Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Hi-Fi Happy Hour. My name is Emiko, aka that Hi-Fi girl, but you already know that. Couple of pieces of news. The first piece of news is Happy Friday, everybody. In honor of my esteemed guest, I busted out the champagne. Normally it's like wine or beer, but tonight there is champagne involved. So it's going to be a great evening. I won't hide my fangirl status. I'm honored that Gene has agreed to come on and hang out for the hour and talk to us and inform us and educate us and encourage us. Just to let you all know, this is a space that is visited and attended by all types of music lovers. So there's no sexism, there's no harassment, there's no bullying. This is a one strike you're out zone, which you all know about me. So if there's any sort of weird spammy comment or something that's gnarly or nasty, out you go. Sorry, not sorry. We're keeping it classy here, folks. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to have different opinions. But music and audio are subjective in the sense of this is our personal experiences and what we want out of our systems, out of the music. So we keep it friendly, we keep it classy. And I get to turn the mic on to Gene tonight, which is I'm very excited about that. So without further ado, and the cough is not COVID, it's my annual bronchial thing. Everybody just, But Audioholics is one of the most well-respected platforms, review sites for audio, home theater, technology. Gene, as you all know, is a wonderful member of our community, of our industry. I'm delighted to be working with him in this space. Lots of things that we're like-minded about, some things we don't see eye to eye on, but that's what makes for a spicy conversation, and it's all cool. My plan for tonight is to ask him non-boring questions and non-typical questions. So if your questions don't get answered, type them in the chat. As you know, we'll try to go through all of them if we can. And without further ado, Gene DellaSala from Audioholics. Hi, Gene.
Hey, how's it going, Emiko? Or should I call you the hi-fi girl?
Well,
Okay.
either is fine. Welcome to Hi-Fi Happy Hour. There's champagne in your
So
honor.
I feel ill-prepared that you're drinking champagne and I'm drinking lemon water. You didn't warn me, and I feel like I didn't get the memo.
It's
And
in the name. It says Hi-Fi Happy Hour.
it just didn't dawn on me. I should have brought. Usually, I bring chocolate to my live streams. I have like Anthony
Nice.
Gramani, and we compare dark chocolate notes.
Woo
But
woo.
next time, if I come on, I'll bring.
Yes.
I'm into sake. I don't know if you're into
Oh,
sake.
yes. Well, I'm Japanese, so that's a requirement for me.
You'd be
Obviously.
surprised how many Japanese people I've met over the years that don't like sake.
Are you sure they're Japanese? Because we really love our sake like a lot. So
I got really over the years. I used to be a beer person. I was into the microbrews, but then it started messing with my stomach.
Yeah.
And
Same.
now I love sake. Like I love unfiltered. I have all these different kind of preferences now with sake that 20 years ago I never would have drank. And it's kind of like an analogy to audio. You get different tastes over time, right? You start liking different things you may not have liked 10 years ago, especially with music. I
Right.
know I change my musical taste change every couple of years, it seems like.
I know. Same. It's true. It's I don't know. It's a rarity for me to. I sort of cut back my drinking a lot over the last couple of months because I have a kidney thing and I lost a bunch of weight from it. So it's rare for me to be drinking, but on this occasion especially, I was like, oh no, we're busting out this bottle and we're bringing out the crystal and we're doing it because it's you. And I'm so and may I just tell you for the record that Brian Mitchell and I were on the phone last night, right? Brian from Acoustics. And he says to me, he goes, you got Gene before I did. And I said, is that like a good thing? Or like, am I like the guinea pig or is this? I don't understand. Like, what position are you taking? He's like, oh no, it's great. He goes, we'll just see how you do. And I was like, thanks, Brian. I really appreciate that.
Well,
awesome. High five, fam.
I don't know if you know this, but I've known Brian. We both started
in the same year, right? In
about
99?
the same year, and I've known him since day one. So I mean, he's just been such a great guy. He's such a smart guy when it comes to his web development skills and stuff. I mean, acoustics is beautiful.
It is.
I wish I could make Audioholics look more modern, like he has acoustics, but that's something hopefully over
Your
top.
site is gorgeous. I was just reading on it today, as a matter
Really?
of fact. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think so. Okay, so this leads me into my first question. This is great.
Mhm.
So everybody has, and I was talking to Mark Henninger about this too from Audiophiles on a Budget. Everybody has their own personality, right? When it comes to
Yeah.
this stuff. Obviously, I'm big and purple and like lightning bolts everywhere and hello. And I feel like you have been able to, over the years, develop a brand that is trusted, sometimes controversial,
Mhm.
but always rooted in solid information. Like even when people disagree with you and they throw rotten vegetables or whatever they do, I don't know. I feel like you're sort of the guy who plants the staff and goes, that's cool. You can come at me, but this is the position and here's why. Right.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk to you a little bit about how you and I were talking about this before, like the snobbery in hi-fi and also these like adopted positions that are somewhat baseless. Like, how do you get to the place where you're okay with people, I don't know, just throwing random stuff, misinformation, bullying, whatever, at the wall, and you just keep on trucking, you know?
So I try not to get too personal on the YouTube comments because there's a
Right.
lot. It's weird because I'll do a review of a amplifier,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no controversy with that, right?
Right.
Or I'll do a review of a loudspeaker, no controversy. People love the
Right.
measurements, they believe the science of what defines a good product. But
Right.
when it comes to a piece of wire, this little cable I have right here,
Right.
um, people just they have all these different opinions. And so over the years, I've always said I've never been anti-cable. I've always said, good cables matter.
Right.
It just doesn't take a whole lot of money to make a good cable. And a lot of the claims that these companies come out with are just don't fly with what we know as engineers. I mean, I
Mm,
went through 6 years of engineering school and I
right.
learned about E&M. I learned about
Mm-hmm.
all the wave mechanics and electrical circuits. And none of the stuff that these cable vendors preach on their website is based in grounded science. The science that we use to design audio gear, the science that we use to go to the moon,
Right.
that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So, and I've always said, charge what you want for the cables, make them as pretty as you can. Just make them so they measure good, which most of these companies don't even show you measurements.
Right.
And don't come up with the snake oil claims because they're just not true. And I understand people have different preferences, and in many cases, someone may think they hear a difference in a cable when there is none to be heard. It's a placebo effect, but it's the aesthetic of the cable. And who's to say that they're wrong? If you put this
Right.
$2,000 speaker cable on and all of a sudden you think things sound great, I'm not going to tell you that they don't sound great. I mean, if
Right.
you think they sound great and they make you feel good about your purchase,
Fine.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And I hate when people misinterpret what I try to do because I'm not knocking anybody for liking components, regardless
And
of how much they pay.
and that's the thing. So you're hearing it here, folks. I just want to reiterate this and maybe paraphrase it. Anybody that DM'd me when the promo came out and said, Gene's a cable hater, I just would like to say you heard it here. That's not what he said. You heard it from his mouth. It's not about hating. It's not about poo-pooing. It's just about understanding what the information is, the accuracy of the information, and then understanding why you're making the decision as an informed consumer. If
Yeah.
you want to buy $10,000 cables or $10 cables, cool. Whatever you want to do, if it makes you feel good and it sounds good to your ear and it helps your experience, okay. So it's funny because this morning, I don't know how the universal higher power just knew. They said, "Oh, Gene's coming on your show, so I'm going to send you a bunch of DMs from people about cables today." And I went, "Great." And so I have a friend of mine who watches my stream fairly often, and he is he's a qualified acoustician. He's designed many recording studios in New York City over the
Awesome.
years. I've known him for years. He just moved to Nashville. I'm so happy that he's made the jump. He's starting to work on studios there. He's just phenomenal, and he's really like a vintage guy, which is cool. And he sent me this text this morning. He goes, somebody posted in your audiophile group about these cables are the best in the world. And then I asked him why, because he and I agree the thing to do is not to make a snap judgment, but rather make an inquiry. Hey, what, we're not judging. We want to know, like, what makes your cables different? What makes them better? And, how can we learn about them, right? The guy didn't answer him. So I went on and he said, I really don't like the fact that the dude left me high and dry because I really want information. I'm not here to judge. I want to know. So I went on the guy's website. These cables are leather. They're like wrapped in cowhide or something. And so I wrote to him and I was like, so what's the deal? And there's all of a sudden this entire conversation. I don't know if I got him or one of his reps or something, but this entire thing presented itself about, if it's skin, it conducts better. I was like, I don't remember cables being in Silence of the Lambs. This is really creepy. Like, creepy. But skin is, like it's a conductor, it's porous. It says, I was like, I don't think that's how. I'm an audiophile. I'm not an engineer. I'm a producer. I'm a songwriter, whatever. But I don't know all the tech specs, nor do I claim to. But I know that that's not one of them.
Yeah. And why don't we let's save a cow and not, waste the resources on that to put a piece of cable through.
Yeah. I was sort of like, wow, there's a lot of carnivorous energy happening here. And that's okay. But really, you're wrapping cables in, that's what you're doing.
Wow.
Like, seriously.
The reality of the situation is there's such a minute difference in cables. So you have to wrap it in fancy packaging or put fancy stories on it. And I always bring this, I actually want to do a video on this. When people look at different cables, and I don't want to talk your whole stream about cables.
Yeah.
But let's say you have this really good cable versus standard 10 gauge zip cord you get at Home Depot.
Sure.
And I could measure 0.2 of a dB of a difference between the two cables, right?
Right.
Just moving your seat forward 3 feet or back 3 feet, the positional EQ effects of moving that seat in your room can change your measurements acoustically coming out of that speaker by over 10 dB.
Right.
That's a much bigger impact. So getting your speaker positioning right and getting your seating positioning right and then getting your acoustics in the room right are thousands of times more rewarding than a fancy cable.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, full disclosure, one of my clients is Audience AV, right? The cable manufacturer. And for April Fool's Day a couple years ago, we decided, because they take the Mickey out of cables. They don't take themselves too seriously. They like to present quality equipment, whether people agree with it or not. There's a lot that goes into manufacture. Everything's handmade. And so we thought, okay, we're going to come up with this video. And we did this video for Audience that we produced, where basically at the time, Lenny Mayu, who's now with MoFi, was the spokesperson. And he said, we've come up with it. He wore a suit. And he said, we've come up with this cable. It's this really incredible product. We spent years working on the technology. I present to you the Invisa Cable. And it's like out of nowhere. And literally we green screened it. So it was just two connectors hanging in midair. And we didn't tell anybody it was an April Fool's joke. We just put it out with the Audience AV announces new cable line. And dealers got all these phone calls like, where can I get this? Where can I get this? These invisible cables, I need them. My wife thinks cables are gross. And these are they clear? What is it?
Called wireless technology.
I was stunned. I was utterly stunned. Like, we really took the great cable debate to the next level. And that actually is, to me, is something really cool that, I mean, Audience is my client. So obviously I love them, but that's something cool that a manufacturer can do to have fun. Right. Yeah. Not take themselves too seriously, be quality, be data oriented, but still know that there's some discussion around what they're doing and just have fun with it. Show people there's a sense of humor.
Can I tell you a quick story about a cable joke I did a long time ago? You probably don't know. I'm way older than you, obviously.
By like 6 months.
Really? No. Well,
I'm Asian. I have good skin. I'm older than I look.
I'm American years. You're Asian years. Thankfully for you.
Well, and Brian Mitchell looks like he's 20 all the time.
Yeah, he doesn't age. He has no stress. The dude has no stress.
That's not true. That's not
Oh,
true.
it's not.
For the last 3 weeks of his life, he and I have been working on a project, and it's been like stress city. So
Well, he doesn't. He's a very positive guy.
he is. He is. Anyway,
So
yes.
I'm talking like 18 years ago. I went
Hmm.
to a trade show. I think it was CES, 18, 20 years ago, right?
Hmm.
Again, I'm old. And I had this idea about a marketing package for Audioholics. I was going to hand out a fancy cable, and I put this whole spiel about it. I called it the glob, and we have an article on our site. I called it the dielectric biasing thing. It was kind of like a parody of AudioQuest when AudioQuest first came out with that battery powered cable. And I put this whole marketing brochure together, and I had someone make me cable samples with a battery on it, and it glue. It had a glow in the dark stick on it, right?
Amaze.
I went up to AudioQuest, took pictures with them. I went up to Straightwire, all these different companies, and it's all on my site. And I did this article, and after I published this article, not only did I get probably 100 emails a week of people hating on me, saying that I sold out, that I'm a cable snake oil salesman. But then I also had these Chinese companies emailing me saying they wanted to produce the cable for me.
There's an opportunity at every corner.
I was like, damn, I should come up with Audioholics branded cables and make them glow in the dark. So yeah, this went on for years. People still would occasionally email me thinking, whatever happened to the Audioholics cable?
That is,
Like,
I want one in purple. I'll pay
oh yeah.
extra. I want one. Apparently, my audio is cutting out some of the time, and I'll tell everybody why. Thank you for writing that in. Victoria is sitting her bulldog ass on my headphone wire, and it's pulling from the side. That's why. When you have a 50-pound bulldog sitting right in front of you, that's what's going
Yeah.
on. So I apologize, everybody, but y'all know Victoria's part of the thing. She is the hi-fi girl. I'm just the human. It's really Victoria. So
Yep.
anyway, so I want to talk to you, Gene. We've been talking a lot about like back and forth about the culture of audiophilia, of the industry, of the community. And I know that people cite you on various forums and groups and post boards and things. And I would love to know from you your take on where you feel the industry is headed and how we can all do our part to make it something fun, something better than it is. I mean, it's great as it is, but level it up.
So my thoughts on this actually are twofold. The whole COVID thing was scary when it happened. Obviously, I was one of the first to get it, unfortunately.
Oh
Um,
gosh. Well, we're glad you're okay.
Thank you. Yeah. So the whole COVID thing kind of I feel like it got people more in touch with staying at home and being consuming entertainment at home more now than ever,
Mm-hmm.
especially when like HBO Max and all these other streaming services were releasing movies directly to stream. I missed that actually. Now they're not doing it so much because they've been losing some money, but
Right.
I just feel like people are invigorated now to take home theater more seriously than they've had maybe 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That and the fact that all the major record labels that are producing some of today's biggest artists, like The Weeknd, Ariana Grande,
Yep.
Yellow, all these guys are producing music in native Atmos.
Right.
And to me, that's like going from a CRT TV to a flat panel. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that much of a game changer. And I love two channel. When I set up all my systems and my home theaters, I always prioritize on getting the two channel right first and then building the surround around it. But when you sit down and you have an Atmos theater, at least I would say at the minimum of a 5.1.4 or
Mm-hmm.
5.1.2, and you go and you listen to spatial audio and it's well recorded spatial audio, and you
Right.
just get to hear layers of the recording you didn't know existed. And the fact that it's so easily consumable now because you have it on Apple Music or you have it on Tidal or even Amazon, and all you need now is an Atmos receiver and
Right.
at least 7 speakers. I think that's game changing. I think that's it's getting people, the next generation who were obsessed with maybe convenience with like
Mm-hmm.
MP3. Well,
Yep.
now they're getting convenience and they're getting quality at the same time. And I didn't
Right.
think that was going to happen. If you wound the clocks back only a year ago, I would have told you we're never going to see the day where we're streaming multi-channel audio. And now all of a
Right.
sudden it happened overnight. literally
Sure.
happened overnight.
Yeah.
So I think that's very positive. And then the headphone virtualization. So if people want to enjoy spatial audio in the headphones, I
Yeah.
think there's still some work that needs to be done on that to get that sounding right. But
Right.
I'm very hopeful about that, about those two things, about people that are embracing home theaters in their houses. I'm seeing it now with new construction. You know,
Yeah.
I go on some of the jobs with my friends from Haven Smart, who helped me do all the smart home integration here, and it's just there's a big uptick now in people not necessarily making theater rooms, but having multi-purpose media rooms
Yeah.
more popular now than ever.
Yeah, no, that's true. And like the way that it's so funny because I just got my new sub is sitting. I haven't unboxed it yet. It's sitting here because I'm going to make a video, so I'm just sort of like putting stuff on it for now until
Mhm.
tomorrow. But one of the things for me that I found was when before COVID, I was like 2 channel all the way, vinyl baby, that's what's up, physical product. You know me with my whole pay the artist more for streaming, right? That whole thing that
Mhm.
I'm on. But then COVID hit and I was like, oh, movies, binge watching series. Oh, okay, cool. And my thing is, I really like old black and white movies,
Mm.
silent films, early talkies from the 20s and 30s,
Oh
40s, like
wow.
that kind of a thing. And it's so interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard black and white movies in surround. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, what are you doing?
It,
Are you up mixing it, or how are you playing it in surround?
no. So I actually went to a studio to hear it. Capitol Studios in their B studio has a really cool surround sound system with speakers in the floors.
Oh,
And
nice.
they were able to play, pardon me, a couple. They played His Gal Friday, which was not Cary Grant. Who was in that movie? All of a sudden, now I'm drawing a blank. They played me
Hmm.
that, and they played me like a Chaplin film. Oh, and they played me The It Girl, right, with Clara Bow, and it was really interesting to just realize how far technology has come. And so that put me on this new home theater thing because I'm not a home theater person at all. Like
Mhm.
nobody has ever claimed, oh, Emiko is the know-all in home theater. No, wrong. I didn't own a TV for years. And then I found myself composing for film and TV. And so I'm like,
That's really cool. Congrats on that, by the way.
thank you. But now I have to look at stuff like, okay, well, are we looking at Atmos? Are we looking at surround? Are we looking at what are we looking at? Because I have to work with post to handle all of that, right? So it's
Yeah.
a really, and I was talking to Mark from Audiophiles on a Budget, and I was like, yo, man, I need some recommendations because my home theater game has got to step up. Because if I have to check these mixes and I have to check the work prints and I'm checking them on some tiny little, I bought it at Walmart. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just sad, right?
Yep.
So I've been secretly reading Audioholics. I look at acoustic stuff. I look at, I look at home theater review also for some things, and I'm having to up it now. And with COVID, especially like you said, it's a totally different world.
Yeah.
You know. So I want to know what you have in your system.
Which
How
one?
your house. Well, no, I was gonna say it's like, so can you take us through
Yeah.
home theater? And then what do you and your family sit down to most of all? That's the question that I have, really.
That's the interesting thing. So I built the whole Audioholic Smart House. We started
Mm-hmm.
this like a year and a half ago, and I wanted to be the first on YouTube to document the entire process from start to finish.
Right.
And I'm still not done. I mean, things take forever to get finished. It's hard to get people to, to get work out of people right now. Everybody's so busy.
Right.
So in the Audioholic Smart House, we have a dedicated home theater space. We've got a family room space that
Mm-hmm.
has Atmos as well. And then I've got my master bedroom that has Atmos. And then I've
Right.
got 2 channel systems all around the house. So
Right.
like right here in this room, I've got the Anthem STR separates. I've got the Revel F328BEs.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a Marantz TT15S1 turntable. Really awesome turntable. I don't know if
Nice.
anybody that spins records. It's one of my favorites. And I got hundreds of records. So I'm into vinyl, even though people make fun of vinyl, saying it's inferior, whatever. I enjoy the experience of vinyl. Are you kidding me?
Who
Taking it out.
says, look, Who says I'm
A lot of objectivists, because there's not as much dynamic range, which is true. There's a higher noise floor, which is true. But if you get some of those older records, I'm a big fan of like fusion jazz from the 70s
Mhm.
and 80s. That stuff did not transfer well digitally, and it sounds
No.
fabulous on vinyl.
And I just want to say something to the people that are down on. First of all, I have a 1914 Victrola gramophone, so
Nice.
original looky only. Number one, but number two, it's like that's like saying classic cars are shit.
Hmm.
I mean, what if my dream car is a 1929 Ford T-Bucket or a 1932 Duesenberg? Like,
I like the late
and
50s Corvette. That's a beautiful car.
okay,
Still to this
same
day.
thing, right? But people are like, oh, they don't handle as good as that. It's like, well, yeah, but that's not the
That's
point
not the point of it. Yeah.
necessarily,
Yeah.
right? And that's the thing. So let's talk about that for a minute, because I don't want to mention names. I'm not here about bringing up old things, but what would you like people to know about you, Gene? Not Audioholics per se, but Gene DellaSala, the person who is in the audio community, who works in the industry, who is a brother among brothers and sisters, right? And a friend among friends. Like, what's something that we should know about you and how you process music and how you process system components and things that maybe you don't get the chance to talk about too much?
So I love music, obviously, is like you do. Since I was a kid, I was obsessed with, guitar, drums, and I've always wanted to hear every little detail. And this is why I started Audioholics, because when I got out of college, I couldn't necessarily afford the gear. So
Hmm.
I figured out a way to get online, start doing little reviews, and then I built this website, and then I started making partnerships. And then I started upgrading my equipment as time went on. And now that I've been doing this for so long, it's kind of sucks when you realize you're starting to get older and you don't hear as good as you used to hear, and it's not as magical as it used to be, or you're just fatigued from hearing everything that's out there, and you kind of have to find a way to reinvent and to get new excitement about it, right? So that's why I started getting into vinyl. I just wanted to have a different medium, different experience. I wanted to bring back kind of my childhood, because
Mhm.
I remember when I was a kid. I have four older brothers. I was the youngest in the house, and they would put on an old Genesis record, and that was like heaven to hear Phil Collins playing the drums and
Sure.
Duke or or Trick of the Tail, and I would sit there on the floor, and they had these giant speakers with 12-inch woofers, and I'd watch the woofers move in and out. That's why I was hooked on audio. So I guess part of me is trying to rekindle that by doing the vinyl and getting more into the analog aspects of audio. But at the same time, I try to keep an open mind about stuff, and I'm not, even though I'm into measurements and I know this measures better than that, I don't just write something off as saying this can't sound good because it doesn't measure good. Because I've measured a lot of products over the years that don't have the best measurements, but then you go and listen to them. I'm like, man, this sounds great, especially speakers. I mean, you'd be surprised at how many speakers I've measured that are incredibly linear, and then you go listen to them and they're just kind of sterile sounding, like they don't have a lot of
Mm,
life to them.
right.
And then your listening preferences change over the years. So 15 years ago, when I had perfect hearing, I liked a speaker that was more neutral, that didn't have an elevated treble response. Now I'm finding myself raising the treble a little bit, putting like a shelving filter, because I
Hmm.
don't hear the high frequencies like I did. I mean, let's be honest, anybody that's my age or older that's still reviewing gear and claiming they have all this super hearing, they don't. It's just a matter of time. It's a matter of age, as well as being exposed to constant loud sounds. And
Hmm.
not that I blast it, but I tend to listen at around 80 dB when I'm really cranking things up. And over time, you do that a few hours a day, a few hours, tens of hours a week, over 20 years, you start losing high frequency hearing.
Sure. Sure.
And
Sure.
then,
Sure. Sure.
and then
Sure.
you got to compensate. So I want to be honest about that. I mean, I know a lot of people don't talk about that, and something I should probably be talking about more. In fact, I've got these high-end hearing aids. I wanted to test them out to see. This company approached me and they're like, "Can you test these out on your channel?" I'm like, I mean, my hearing is still within norms, but I
Hmm.
was was kind of curious to see if I put these on, if I could hear more details in the recordings, or just to give people hope, because I know there's a lot of audiophiles that are in their 50s or 60s that they can't hear past 8 or 9 kilohertz.
Right.
So I want to see if there's a possibility that they can enhance their listening, or even if I can enhance my listening, messing with stuff like this, using an open-ended noise canceling hearing aid that just, is tailored to the sound of your hearing, or to, your audioology. What is it called? I'm like losing my word right now. Audiogram. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been kind of messing with this for like the last couple of weeks. I haven't had a lot of success because, like I said, my hearing is mostly normal, but I'm keeping an open mind to see how this would work. I'm trying it out on my mom, who can't hear past 8 kilohertz,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to see if programming this correctly for her, if she can go and listen to sound and music and see if she's enjoying it more. So I think that kind of topic needs to be covered more. When people are debating cables and they're debating, all these different tweaks to their systems, how about let's talk about your hearing and preserving your hearing, and
Right.
what can you do for hearing health?
Well, that's one of the things that we're doing at the show in June, is we're going to be bringing in an ENT specialist to do hearing tests, not to be bullies or to be judgmental, but to say, listen, we'd like to give you the opportunity to get your hearing checked, right? And then discuss what options you have. And maybe that'll actually change people's purchase options, because now they're armed with knowledge that perhaps they didn't have before. And I will say this, anybody that knows me knows that I like to troll the audiophile post boards late at night. And I use the word troll purposely. I don't actually post horrible comments, but I just sort of sneak around and see what's up. And it seems to me like the people who have the most hearing degeneration are the people that have the maximum amount of asshole.
Yes.
Like there's a scientific measurement of like, I can't
Yeah.
hear, I'm a jerk. And so that's something that we talk about at the show. Okay, Victoria, I don't need a bath, but thank you. But we talk about a lot. And so I would like to know, like, how important do you feel that the discussion of hearing health is important in us as an industry? Like, should we, as the industry, take more of a leadership role in advocating for hearing health?
Absolutely, especially when you go to concerts, and I'll never forget one of the loudest concerts I ever been to, and I was really upset with it because my ears were ringing for 2 or 3 days afterwards. It was like 1994. Yes, the band Yes.
Really?
They did an album called Talk with Trevor Rabin, and it was the last album with Trevor Rabin, and it was an amazing album. I mean, that album gets no love, but it was just one of my favorite Yes albums. And they did it in quad, and they had this like giant arena of speakers, and it was in Orlando. And I went with my brother, and I forgot my hearing protection. Usually I bring hearing plugs.
Right.
So I went into the bathroom, I got toilet paper, wet it, shoved it in my ears.
I do that.
I held my ears the whole 3-hour concert, and I still couldn't hear right for 2 or 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
And Earth, Wind, and Fire did the same thing. I went to an Earth, Wind, and Fire show about 4 years ago. Luckily, I had foam tips, but I measured. I was looking at my phone. It was overloading my phone mic. It was over 115 dB sustained.
Holy crap.
That's worse than, people complain about like movies are too loud, or or being on an airplane's too loud, but these concerts are out of control.
Yeah, they are. They are. And Earth, Wind, and Fire, that's difficult because they travel with a large horn section. So there's a lot of high end and a lot of like really, really brassy mid-range. So that's tricky. I was just at, we saw the Rolling Stones at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. And right after Charlie Watts had passed, one of the boomiest concerts I had ever been to in my life. I was stunned at how boomy. And I know some of it has to do with where you're sitting. Some of it has to do with how they're mixing it. Some of it there's a lot of variables that go into it. But I just was like, man, all I hear are Steve Jordan's drums. There's a lot of Steve, and I love Steve Jordan, don't get me wrong. But I was like, man, that foot, I don't know if he's wearing like an astronaut's moon boot or he cased his sneakers in lead or what's going on, but it was just, this is all that I heard. I was stunned.
Some bands are like that. So last time I saw Yes was on Cruise to the Edge. It was
Were you on that? So my buddy is their production manager, just so you know.
really.
Yes, yes.
So
And Jeff
Chris
Downs is a
Squire,
friend of mine. So
I went on the one where right before Chris Squire passed away,
Oh, he
and
was on that one. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
and I'm not trying to speak badly about him. I think he's one of the best bass players in rock,
Yeah,
but
sure.
he had a whole wall of basses plugged in. So everything, the whole thing, the whole concert, all I heard was his bass. It was at least 15 dB louder than the rest of the music. And I just think it's when you get to that level, you just want to be, hey, look at me, I'm the best bassist ever. And he
Mm,
just blasted the bass. That was not pleasant. So
mm.
I've seen that in concerts. And to be honest with you, sometimes I'd rather just get the Blu-ray. Like I look for Blu-rays. I got the Roger Waters,
Uh-huh.
awesome in Atmos, just awesome. Like you couldn't hear
Nice.
that. If you went to that live concert, it wouldn't sound as good as it sounds in my home
Right.
theater. And
I
speaking
believe
of
it.
which, I know you asked me about the equipment in my home theater,
Yes.
and I sidetracked. I apologize.
No, it's fine.
So in my main theater room, it's a 25-foot by 20 by 10-foot ceilings, and we've
Hmm.
got 2 rows of seats. And in that system, I have a fully active RBH sound speaker system, huge, like 7.5-foot towers. So the subs are built into them. That's all done with DSP. So I
Hmm.
use FIR room correction on that. There's no passive crossovers in the speakers. And I spent months just tuning that system with the guys that designed it.
Hmm.
And this is something that's maybe a topic for another live stream, but using a program called REW, which does acoustical measurements in your room, we're able to get like perfect time and phase coherence at the main listening position. So it's
Nice.
like the left and right speaker above the room transition frequency, which is
Hmm.
about 300 hertz. They track 100%. Like I've never seen, you can't, it's very hard to do that with a passive speaker. What I'm trying to get at is when you can get a speaker to match like that, you can get that kind of phase coherency. You get the strongest phantom center you've ever heard. So when you're listening to two-channel music and you're listening to Diana Krall or you're listening to whoever you like, her voice is dead center, like the center channel's on. And when people come and listen, they're like, "Oh, your center channel's on. You're not in two-channel." I go stand by my screen. They go stand by the screen, and there's no center channel.
Huh. So
That
we've got a question actually about your room. The acoustician studio builder friend of mine says, does he have a sloped ceiling in that room? That's a good question.
no, it's flat. Yeah, it's flat.
Okay. That's a good question. I'd love for him to, I love my friend to post a follow-up as to why he wants to know that and what he thinks of that. That's, it's an interesting question. He clearly is picturing your room. I mean, he can just picture it and go, aha, I know where everything else, so
Yeah, no, I mean
that's crazy.
one thing about when you do Atmos is I mean, slope ceiling's fine if it's at the front or back, but you really want a flat ceiling for Atmos because you want to put those speakers in the ceiling, fire
Oh,
it
right.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
So
and
there's
then
an Atmos system in
I
there.
did another no-no that, see, this is the thing where you have to keep an open mind. Like, I've always wanted to have wide channels because if you think about how the human ear perceives sound, we hear
Hmm.
laterally, right? Because we evade predators, so we look in front of us, we look for the predators in front of us. We don't necessarily hear as well above and behind.
Hmm.
So if you could create a really wide sound stage in front of you, there's an advantage to having wide channels. But the problem is when you try to put wide channels in most rooms, they're not wide enough. They're only
Right.
15 or 20, right? So then you're gonna
That's
have,
my problem.
yeah, you're gonna have too many speakers on the floor. People are gonna walk into them, not fun. So my idea is to have an on-wall speaker that has an angled baffle that can
Hmm.
fire at the listener on the sidewalls. Nobody makes that right now, but I'm actually talking to 2 different companies about
Hmm.
making one for me. So what I did in the meantime is I put speakers in the ceiling, but they're on angled baffles. They have the mid-range and the tweeter are on an angled baffle, so they're firing at the listening area.
Hmm.
And I know people are saying you shouldn't put a wide speaker in the ceiling because it's not at the same height as the mains. But I'm telling you, psychoacoustically, it actually works because when I run test tones and you sit at your main listening position, it actually sounds like it's coming from the width of the room.
Right.
And then we go and put on movies like we put on that movie with Angelina Jolie, the one where she directed that war movie,
Hmm.
Unbroken, I think it's
Yeah.
called. So when you listen to the plane flyovers and you hear the gunshots and stuff, it actually sounds when you turn this wide channels on and off, you hear a difference in the width of the soundstage that you didn't have without the wide channels. So I encourage, if anybody's looking at going beyond like 7.2.4, before you add another set of speakers in the ceiling for heights, consider doing a wide channel if you could fit it.
Interesting tip. I would be curious to see what everybody runs out and gets now. Or if they start tearing their room apart, going, "Oh, Gene said I have to do this, so I'm going to go do it." So
I mean, you don't have to do it, but it's just it's like icing on the cake, right? So if you have a really great cake and you want to put some nice icing on it, then that's, more power to you. And the processor I use, I have the ability to add 24 speakers. So I'm using the Storm Audio, and it's all the reason why I chose the Storm is because it has digital outputs. So I've got the digital outputs going right into the DSP from my speakers without any analog to digital conversion. It's a direct digital connection, and then that DSP does all of its crossovers and processing, and then it goes into the amplifier and it powers the speakers. And each speaker is tri-amplified, so there's a lot of power in that room. Plus, I've got 2 more subs in the rear to smooth out the bass. So my goal when I set up a home theater is I want to have, at every seat, I want to have plus or minus 5 dB variance at most, from 15 hertz out to 100 hertz. That way, so no matter where you sit in that room, the bass will sound consistently good.
Right. That's awesome. I want to switch gears and ask you something that, I apologize if it's uncomfortable, but it's something that's been weighing on my mind for probably the better part of 18 months.
Oh, okay.
So a while ago, I don't know if you made a video or you did a live stream or you did an article about, not sure exactly. I can't remember. But all these people started parroting you, and I'm pretty sure what they parroted was not entirely accurate. This idea of negative reviews or no negative reviews. Do you know what I'm talking about? Maybe, maybe not.
You mean they were actually doing videos about me?
No. You had put something out, and all of a sudden, everybody who doesn't make videos, who lives in their mother's basement, was like, Gene DellaSala says that if you don't do a negative review, then you're being bought off and the media's controlling, and you're fake and screw you.
No, I did a video about fake reviews.
Okay, right. So that's what I'm saying, is people parroted that, and I think in a game of telephone, it ended up being that you were some sort of, what you originally said is not what the end message was, because, and I'll tell you that, which is very, I think, that probably happens more frequently than not. And I found, for me, I became the Eggleston Works loudspeaker ambassador. And through my ambassadorship, I was engaged to make a series of videos. They were not reviews. They were simply about my experiences in listening. That's all they were. They were not like, oh, buy the Eggleston Works OSOs because they're awesome. I mean, they're great, but that would be disingenuous. I posted these videos, and so there must have been one day where all the audiophiles over the age of 62 were all PMSing, because the amount of vitriol that came out. Normally people are like, oh, I love your purple speakers and it makes my wife want to get into audio and this is great. And this day it was like, die, bitch, die. And it was horrific. It was nasty. And it was funny because I was talking to, excuse me, Mark from Audiophiles on a Budget, who's a great guy. And there was some guy needling me about, well, what's the arrangement that you have? You're not a true journalist if you don't disclose this is a fake review. And I said, I never said this was a review. And so people started tagging you. And I was like, why are people tagging Gene of all people in this? Like,
I think I remember something on Facebook.
Right. Yeah. It was like, well, Gene DellaSala, what say you? Like, you should weigh in. And I thought, oh boy.
I hope I didn't get involved in that. I don't think I did, right?
You didn't know. As a matter of fact, you and I hopped on DM and just had a real nice, like, oh my gosh, these people are so, bless their hearts, as my Southern Texan friend would say, bless their hearts, right?
Right.
So my question to you is now, especially through COVID, and given the current state of divisiveness and somewhat vitriolic interaction that goes on in these forums, obviously, when people put out reviews or they put out sort of this influencer style videos, right? And they want to get free gear or whatever. How valuable do you think that is? Or do you feel that there could be a positive change affected in the way that these messages are conveyed, i.e., should they be more knowledgeable? Should they be more forthcoming about what their background is?
Yeah.
Should they state, hey, listen, I'm not an engineer. I love music. I work at a bar, but hey, listen, this is my experience and I'm Joe, every man, and I thought you might like this. Or is it good for them to try to position to raise themselves up? Like, what are your thoughts on the current
So
trend with
I
that?
think some of the bigger YouTube channels now, they do sponsored videos, right? And
Sure.
they'll say that this video was sponsored by such and such. I think
Right.
that I commend them for doing that, right? I mean, I'm doing
Absolutely.
some of that myself. I've got some
Sure.
equipment. Some of the equipment in this house are sponsored for this whole project. In fact, the Paralisten speakers that I'm going to be doing a video on, I even say that in the video. Um,
So
I,
wait, may I just, I'm sorry. I'm the girl that interrupted Gene DellaSala. Just let it go down in
oh,
history.
good.
All right. I have no shame. But I want to stop you there because I want to ask you this question, because that's one of the big things that people said to me. Oh, you're sponsored by Eggleston Works. So you obviously, everything you say about the speaker is disingenuous. And I had to go back and say, no. I'm sponsored by them because I love them, not the
Mhm.
other way round, right? Have
Yeah,
you come up with,
why would you promote a company and have their product if you don't like it, right? That's life's too short.
okay,
Life's too short.
thank you.
Yeah.
You're
So
hearing it here.
as long
Yes.
as you're disclosing it, I mean, if you're
Right.
going to do, even if you do a review of the product, say, hey, you know what? I got this product from such and such. They sponsored it, but I still want to review it because I
Right.
love the product. Here's my take, take
Sure.
with what you can out of it. If it's useful for you, great. If not, no worries. I mean,
Right.
it's not worth losing sleep over or fighting people over.
No, but I just want to, because people watch this now live and then they catch it on the replay a few days later. And I think the key is we don't take on, I don't know about you, I'll speak for myself personally. I don't take on partnerships, sponsorships, collaborations, or endorsements unless it's something that I'm familiar with or I'm researching or something I'm interested in or genuinely use in real life anyway,
Yeah.
because I have to believe in it, right? And so the idea of these fake videos or fake reviews are something that I really wanted to hear your take on. I'll stop interrupting you.
So
Uh,
can I plug something real quick from
yes, please.
what we're doing on Audioholics right now?
Yes, 100%.
So I've never been one to have like a sponsored store on our channel. Like I tried years ago to do a branded store that didn't
Mhm.
work out because
Right.
the people behind it just were not knowledgeable, right? Audio Advice is a company that I've been researching for the last few months, and everything I've seen on their website, their education, just their philosophy kind of really goes with the core of what I do with Audioholics.
Mhm.
And I started talking to the owners and all the people behind the scenes. And I just thought it would be a great partnership. So I did a video a few days ago about how we now have a branded partner, Audio Advice, on Audioholics. Because people are
Congratulations.
always
That's
asking,
awesome.
thank you. People are always asking, where do I buy equipment? I want to design a room. How can I help? They have a whole designer tool. And maybe 10 years ago, that would people would have just like thrown pitchforks at me, right? But now everybody is doing it. All the YouTubers, all the big YouTubers have sponsors. I
Mhm.
mean, otherwise, why would you do this as a day job? You got to make a living, right? I mean, you can't fault people for making a living. So now that we have this ability to partner with people that are like-minded with us, that have the
Yeah.
same core philosophies, they sell the products that we review. It's not going
Mhm.
to change the outcome of our reviews. We still have our reviews, but if they
Right.
sell that product, I'll put a buy now link, and if I'm lucky, I'll get a 6% commission on it.
Sure. Sure.
So I mean, at the end of the day, we got to make a living. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'll go back in a cube and be an engineer and never do this stuff again.
No, and it's so interesting that people, I want to try to get people to understand that. And I think by and large, like my following understands that endorsements, partnerships, collaborations, these are all good things because there's strength in numbers. We're amplifying the message, haha, pun intended. But to be told, oh, this is disingenuous because you're being paid for it. Okay, then you know what? Quit your job at the accounting firm and just do it as a volunteer, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't don't take money for your paralegal work. Don't charge
Yeah.
people money on the bus when they get on your municipal route.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, I
okay,
just, if you disclose who your partners are, I don't see any
yeah,
problem with that.
right.
Yeah. And
So
then,
that,
the
mhm,
other thing too is I have the luxury of having lots of writers write for me.
yeah,
So
right.
most of the all the writers on Audioholics, they have no business dealings at all with the site, right? They just write for me.
Hmm.
So like James Larson does 90% of our speaker reviews. He doesn't know the
Right.
deals I'm working out with these
Sure.
companies. I say, hey James, can you review this product? This guy is so legit and so like pragmatic that anytime he gets a product, he instantly wants to send it back after he's done with the review. Sometimes the manufacturer will be like, you can keep the product. He's like, no, that's going to taint my review.
Right.
That's on him. If that's what
Right.
he believes, that's great. I'm not going to step on his toes.
Sure.
The guy is so well respected and so trustworthy that you just can't buy that kind of genuineness
Right.
in people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of reviews and genuineness, I want to talk to you about genuine advice and genuine encouragement for people. I've got a lot of folks that watch this that are younger. They're like college students or just recently graduated. A lot of young women, trans folks that are just, they don't feel comfortable in the older gentlemen that ride the bus for half price club, shall we say.
Mhm.
And so I would love to hear from you what type of advice, encouragement, first steps they can take to ingratiate themselves into what is a very warm and welcoming community by and large, and what types of things you would recommend for them.
First of all, I would commend them for getting involved in audio, right? Because we need the next generation of people involved in this
Absolutely.
business. It can't just be
Yes.
all 50, 60-year-old men because it's a population that's shrinking. So I would say embrace it and find the information, research on YouTube, on the editorial sites, go get involved in the communities. I mean,
Yep.
I'm trying to get more women involved in audio. I think only 6% of our viewership on YouTube is female. I wish it was 20% or 30%. I don't know
Right.
how to get that. Sometimes I guess we tend to be a little too technical because we do all the measurements and stuff, and
I don't
maybe
think that has very much to do with it,
no.
actually. Mm-mm. I think it's the forums that bring people down.
The forums are pretty toxic. There's one particular forum I won't go on anymore. It's all supposedly science based, but it's a really toxic place. And they try
Science
to,
based. Okay.
yes, they try to. Here's the problem with that: when you get too far into the measurements and you try to categorize product performance by one measurement, then you've got a problem. By
Well,
one single measurement, they have a whole table that this product's better than this product because it has 5 dB better noise or 5 dB better distortion. When you get into that kind of crowd, that
right.
becomes dogma.
Yeah, absolutely. And half of them can't hear it anyway. So,
Ex-
I mean, yeah, you
That's
could,
the
that's
problem.
fine. Like your car goes from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. Mine does it in 3.5. The likelihood of us racing on
Yeah.
street legal territory is nil. So who cares? Right.
Yep.
There's a moment where it's overkill. Well, I know you're, may I mention your lovely wife?
Yes, absolutely. She's
I
a
mean,
big part of my
she's a big
success.
part of what you're doing, and she's a
Yes.
hi-fi sister. And I want to just shout her out and say, "Hey, girl, hey!" Um,
For real. Before I got my wife Bertha involved with YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, we had almost no social media presence for
mm,
years. Next thing I know, our Facebook has over 100,000 followers. Our
right,
YouTube is 160 something thousand. I mean, it's thriving, and it's because she's got the pulse of the community. With
right,
Instagram, she puts up a picture and she puts a little, she puts a little phrase up.
yeah,
It's the woman touch, and we
it
need that.
is.
We need more of the women's touch in the field. So,
We do. And
yeah.
you've got I actually spoke to one of your daughters one day. She had lost her phone. I was like, "Hey, Jean, what's up?" She's like, "Not Jean. My phone got stolen. It's me."
Yeah,
I was like, "Oh,
Gabriella.
sorry.
Yeah.
Hey." I mean, they're involved too, right? Like I see comments about the daughters have been in the videos as well. I mean,
Yeah, my
how
daughter helped me
it's a
do the
whole
Product of the Year award video
that's
for
amazing.
2021. So that was pretty cool.
That's great. So it's a family affair then.
As much as it can be. I mean, they're not into it as much as I'd like them to be,
Mm,
but my daughter does come home a lot from work, and she's like, "Dad, I want to hear that weekend thing in that surround." She doesn't know Atmos. She's like, "Put it in that surround." She knows that it's not just two channel,
right.
and we'll spend 30 or 40 minutes just listening to that music. So, and I use her as a test because she's got perfect hearing.
Of
I'm like,
course.
"Do you
Yeah.
hear a difference? Does this sound great?" She's like, "I've never heard anything like this before." So that's a good test right there. When you can get someone young especially
Yeah.
females. Females have better high frequency hearing mostly than men.
Yeah.
So when you can get someone in there that has great hearing, that understands the progressions you're trying to make things sound better, it's always good to have other ears on what you do.
I'm going to ask you a question as a married man who's married to your lovely wife. What do you think? I'm not going to ask you what do you think men can do, but I do want to pose this question. Two
Mhm.
questions I want to pose you. Number one, what do you think the husbands are doing wrong that are not involving their wives as much in audio? Like, what's, if we had to hone in on something, what would that something be?
I can tell you the biggest complaint I hear from women about people that have home theater systems is the men play
Okay.
it too loud.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Too much bass, too loud, or just obscure music. Maybe play music that you both like. I got into music I never would have listened to if it wasn't for my wife. I listened to Julio Iglesias.
Nice.
I would have never listened, probably, maybe, because I'm pretty open-minded about music, but I got really into Julio Iglesias, his son. I got into a lot of the Latin
Enrique.
music,
Yeah.
Ricky Martin and um, Anthony, what's the guy's name? The salsa player, Mark Anthony.
Mark Anthony. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
I'm like, I love his music, and it sounds great in
Nice.
two-channel. So I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
yeah. So
Fantastic.
you know what? The best way to get women involved is if you want your wives involved with it, is say, hey, what's your favorite music? Let's go listen to it. Even if you don't like that music, go and entertain her, let her enjoy it, and then you can slip on something that you like, and maybe you can open up, her mind, and you
Sure.
guys can do it more together. That's one of the reasons why we like vinyl so much. My wife absolutely loves the whole experience of vinyl. She loves the
Sure.
tactile experience of taking the record out, cleaning it, and she even likes hearing the snap crackle pops in the record. So even though we try to eliminate that as much as possible, it's
Right.
very charming when you hear it between songs.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding? I've got a what's his name? Not Engelbert Humperdinck. Old Lang Syne. Who sang Old Lang Syne? Somebody quick tell me.
I don't know that.
Do you know who I'm talking? Oh, Dan Fogelberg. Yes, you do.
Oh, I love
Dan
Dan.
Fogelberg. Yeah.
Oh, that, yeah.
I have a Dan, and that song is not on the record. I have a Dan Fogelberg record that's nothing but pop, pop, snap, crackle, the whole
Yeah.
thing. And because I got it for $1.50 at some flea market. But you know what? It just makes me feel so warm and fuzzy whenever I hear
So
it.
I've
It's
got a Dan
wonderful.
Fogelberg record that has this other guy, I think Tim Russ or something. It's an obscure record.
Uh
I
huh.
got it at a used vinyl store. It was in
Yeah.
perfect condition. It's unbelievable music. Like I've grew up with Dan Fogelberg, leader of the band, that kind of stuff. But this is not commercial at all. It's like it's very non-Dan Fogelberg-ish, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still Dan Fogelberg. So I would
Right.
recommend you check that out on vinyl because it sounds great
Nice.
too. Yeah.
Okay. I will. I have two more questions for you. Well, three more questions for you. The first question is this, and I'm just taking the dig, but I'm not really. I do want to know this. What's it like to be a guy in audio?
I mean, it's empowering. When you
Okay.
when you set up a system and it sounds great, I mean, I do stupid videos on YouTube where I'm dancing because I have a good calibration. But
Nice.
and can I like say something that might be a little controversial? Um, when you have really good fidelity and you get a nice buzz going, or if you can do an edible if it's legal and if it's doctor prescribed, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like the combination of the two and just relaxing,
Hmm.
unwinding. And I like listening in the dark.
Yeah, me
So
too. Yeah.
yeah, it sounds better to me. I know it's all subjective, it's all psychological, whatever, but I'll put on some background lighting, and getting the lighting in the room really changes the mood and how you perceive the sound.
Totally.
Like if I have all my
100%.
lights on in the ceiling, I can't focus on the sound. I don't enjoy it. But if I have just light background lights,
Hmm.
whether it's different colored lighting or whatever, just accent lighting,
Right.
and you got a little buzz going, and
Yeah.
you're just kind of winding down. I always listen at night. For some reason, it's just everything sounds better to me at night because my heart rate's lower and I'm just more
Hmm.
calm and it's
Right.
quieter. So
Sure. Sure.
yeah, it's just it's like when you get into this, because it is an obsession. I'll sit in my room and I'll spend 3 hours trying to eke out every little bit of measurement based performance I can get to flatten out the response,
Right.
and you're never satisfied. You always want to make it better and better and better. And But when you get it right, it's like a very exhilarating feeling.
It is. And we've got audio acoustic engineering here is asking, shouldn't it be the same experience for men and women? And the answer
Yeah.
is yes. I mean, in that holistically speaking, yes. I asked the question of what's it like to be a guy in audio because I get asked, what's it like to be a woman in audio? And I'm like, well, first I put on my lady clothes. Then I go listen to my lady record on my lady record player. I mean, what is it that people want me to say, right? So I've started posing the question back to my male guests and saying, what does it feel like for you? Like, what is your experience in it? Because I think it's important people realize, A, how ridiculous the question is, but B, it's a human experience. It's not a gender experience. It's about what you love to listen to, right? And what
Yeah.
you want to feel at that moment, isn't it?
And I think there are different priorities between what men and women want out of it. I know a lot of guys they just want the bass, right? I mean, it's an adrenaline thing.
Sure.
I love good bass as long as the bass is not boomy and it's tight and it's linear and it's clean. The women don't like the bass as much. So the way I test the system is I bring my wife in because
Mm-hmm.
she's very sensitive to bass and she does not like any resonances in the bass.
Mm,
When I set up a speaker initially, she listens, she's like, it sounds boomy. When she sits down and she listens to music that has bass and she's not complaining that it's boomy, then I know I've got it calibrated well.
that's
Even without looking at my measurement equipment, I just know my wife is my ultimate litmus test for that.
well, they do say happy wife, happy life. And that's true in hi-fi as well, I think, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. What last question before we go, I'll say thank you. But what is if you could see hi-fi take any turn, any development, or audio, I'll say audio and home theater, what would that turn or development be? Like in the next year to 3 years? What would you love to see happen?
I just think making things easier, because unless you have a home automation system or control system, I think about my mom. My mom sits in her house and she's got like four remote controls and she's got to finagle them to turn the TV on and the receiver. And
Mm-hmm.
there's not an easy solution where you can just get a remote control where it's all IP controlled for the
Right.
most part and it has all the macros built in. We need to make things more accessible for people. I know there's this wireless company we're going to be talking about soon called Odality,
Mm-hmm.
and it's lossless audio that can go up to 1,300 feet, like true high resolution audio, like the best, unbelievable. I heard a demo of it at the Florida Audio Expo last month.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get to the point where everything is wireless and you just basically take your speaker, plug it in the wall, it already networks with a box that plugs into your TV. Then you can have good two channel, good surround sound, have all your apps built into one place. I just think making things more easily configured, automatically configured, and getting people to not be afraid of the technology is a huge win to get a bigger audience. Because right now we're really talking about the 1%, right? We want to get that to 10 or 50 or 100%.
Sure.
If we could get good quality, that's also easy to just plug in and it works.
Yeah. And that is where streaming can come in sometimes,
Hmm.
sometimes, but that's a whole different stream where I go off on paying music creators more. We don't have time for that today. I lied. One last question. What does a hi-fi sister have to do to get Gene DellaSala and his lovely wife and family as well, maybe the dog or the cat, out to the home entertainment show in Long Beach, California?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
What's a girl
That's
got to do, man?
my wife's just not. She's got problems going on airplanes right now because she had a craniotomy, so she's very
Oh,
sensitive to her
goodness.
pressures.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would potentially do it. I love California. When is that again?
June 10 through 12.
Hmm.
We can
Trying to.
talk about it later, but this is your standing
Yeah.
invitation. I would be remiss if I didn't, everybody's like, oh my God, make it happen, Emiko. So I would be remiss if
How
I
many
didn't.
demo areas? Like how many exhibits are there, or how many rooms? Is it a big like?
I will say that off camera to you once the stream closes, because I'm not allowed to disclose
got
that
you.
yet. That's coming out next week or the week after. So I can tell you in advance, but everybody else over here, my lovely brothers and sisters, y'all got to wait. Sorry.
So try to make one on the East Coast too.
We have had, I will just publicly say this, we have had a number of requests to go to a very large metropolis on the East Coast. I won't say which one. I will just say that we have received very fervent feedback and encouragement to come to the East Coast and make it happen. I mean, we've added Denver, which is happening in October. We've added Nashville. We have a Phoenix dealer only, like B2B show that's happening. And we have New Orleans. We've blown up and exploded and expanded. So, I mean, we'll see you at one of them.
Denver, I would go just because Sushi Den is there.
Fair. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But we would love to get you to Long Beach somehow, whatever needs to happen to. And Brian will be there.
Oh, there you go.
So,
I've known the guy for 20 something years, and I think I only met him face to face once or twice.
Well, okay, there you go. If you don't come out for me and Maurice, you can come out for Brian Mitchell. He'll be there. So, anyway, Gene,
I appreciate the invite, and thank you for having me here as well.
It's an absolute pleasure. That I honestly was stunned that you said yes, you would come on my very humble. It wasn't humble on Instagram, but all my followers like, move to YouTube, and I went, great. Now we have to start over. But thank you for being on the show. Thank you for all your perspective, all your education, your encouragement, your information that you give to the community, and always being a pillar of knowledge, perspective, and just being such a downright nice dude. Like, it's a pleasure to know you and to work with you and to interview you, which is
likewise. And you're famous. You're this big movie show producer now for music and stuff like that. That's awesome.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on my show before Acoustics. Just kidding, Brian. I'm just kidding. I'm
going to hear from him, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure either he or Ian's going to call me like, listen, next time, this is what we're going to do. No. It was only because the Tampa show was when we had you originally booked, remember?
Yes, yeah.
So it was only because of that we had to move it.
And I'd like to have you on our YouTube again, because we want to do that whole topic with Brian and Ian about the audiophile snobbery thing. I think we should.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started. I would be delighted, honored, and ready to discuss that. But anyway, thank you so much for being my esteemed guest this evening. Everybody, I think, had a wonderful, insightful hour and 7 minutes with you. And stay tuned, everybody. Next week, my guest is none other than Nicholas Brown, who is the VP of Marketing for SVS. After that is Cookie Marenko from Blue Coast Records. And then April 1st, who's April 1st? I can't remember. I have to look at my phone. But anyway, thank you all so much. Audioholics, I know you all know Gene's account, page, website, the whole thing. If for whatever reason you're new, or if for whatever reason you're living under a rock, Audioholics, that's the place to go. And Gene, if I do have like students and beginners, may I send them your way to ask for some advice, ask for some counsel on things? Would you be willing to take questions after the fact?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fabulous. You heard it here. Thank you, everybody. See you next week. And until next time, see you on Instagram. Bye, y'all.